Hey everyone! Well, I know it's been a while since I uploaded my last video, but I think as 2016 rolled over I just felt I needed to have a little downtime and recharge. But I have done a couple things since the last video. In January I went to the Vancouver Boat Show, and there's two locations for the show. One is the floating portion at Granville Island. Of course, that's where all the large sailboats are and powerboats, and you get to take a look on board and dream big. The other location is BC Place, where they have more powerboats in the main arena, and then on the mezzanine area they have the vendors and services. There's always a lot of good boat show deals, and it's a fun event to attend each year. Of course, going to the boat show gives you lots of ideas for upgrades to your boat. And one of the things I've been wanting to do for quite some time is upgrade more of the interior cabin lights from incandescent to LED. And I ended up finding a business at the boat show that has all kinds of lights that are available in both incandescent and LED. So there were 4 lights in total that I upgraded, and 2 are in the main cabin and 2 are in the V-berth. The fixtures I had are the original fixtures from the original build. The incandescent bulbs were very dim and they drew a lot more power than what an LED bulb will. So I managed to find these nice reading lights that are ceiling mounted for the main cabin. And one thing I really like about these LED lights is that they're very warm. And I have found with a lot of LED lights, they're very cool in color. And I don't find that cool blue light goes nicely with teak and with some of the other colors in the cabin. The lights I had in the V-berth were also the same fixtures, the same incandescent bulb, which drew a lot more power, and they were also very dim. These new lights are adjustable, so I can direct the angle of the light, and they're very bright, draw way less power, and very happy with that, having more light in the V-berth, because I've never had that before. It's always been very dim up there at night, and sometimes I've even had to bring a flashlight up there to look for something. One of the things I'm always trying to do is keep the boat feeling like a home. You may have remembered I used to have a plant named Charles, which my daughter named. He didn't make it. I brought him to work and he got a little neglected over the course of me coming and going over the whole summer and asking people to water him. So I was very sad to see him go. But recently a friend of mine gave me a very nice gift of 2 little plants. And these 2 little plants look really nice, and the pots are especially nice because they have the perfect message on them for life aboard the boat. You may have noticed in one of my previous videos that I run my engine about once a month during the winter, and that's just to identify any issues or problems the engine might have, because I would rather spend the time now to fix it than during the summer when I'm trying to enjoy the boat and go places. So the last time I ran the engine, I noticed a small little drip coming from the seawater pump, and that's the pump that encases the impeller. I talked to the shop where I get all my Yanmar parts from, and they mentioned it may be the paper gasket or even one of the screws that holds the plate on the back of the impeller. So I thought this would be a good time to replace the impeller while I'm at it, and if it's in good condition I'll keep it as a spare. I also was going to replace the paper gasket and the screws. So here's a look at the engine access once I've removed the companionway stairs. And the issue I'm having is the seawater pump, I guess seawater cooling pump, which is right here. On the back side of this is the impeller, and I don't think there's an issue with the impeller, but what's happened is when I run the engine, there's been a small little drip coming down. So to remove the seawater pump, it's quite easy. You have this bolt here, which is what the whole pump pivots on, and this bolt sets the position of the pump so that you can adjust the tension on the belt. So you only have to remove these 2. I'll remove this one first, and then I can push the pump a little this way, get the belt off, and then I'll take this one off. Now, to access the back side of this, you're going to have to remove or loosen at least the clamp, the hose clamp here, and the hose clamp on this side. And you could just rotate it then and work on it right there, or you could take the whole pump off and work on it in a better location like the floor here. Very important thing to do before you do any of this is to close the valve for the water intake. Now that I've got those hose clamps loosened, you can see the pump can just rotate, and you could just change your impeller without taking the hoses off. So what I'm going to do before I pull this impeller out, I'm just going to take a quick snapshot with my camera. I'm pretty sure I'll remember which way those little arms are going, but I want to make sure I put it back in the right way. Anyways, I'll get this old gasket off and cleaned up and put the new one on, put everything back on, put the new impeller in, and I'll start the engine and see if that fixes the problem. I'll let the engine run for about half an hour to make sure that that leak doesn't show up again, and if it's all good, I'll shut it down and call it a day, call it a success. So after about 30 minutes of running the engine, it looked like everything was fine. There was no drip. I turned the engine off and I noticed a small little drip. So now it was doing the opposite. Before it dripped when I ran the engine, and now it was dripping when I didn't run the engine. So I was a little confused. I went back to the shop where I get my Yanmar parts and told them this is what the seawater pump is doing now. And they said, well, there's a seal on the inside of the main housing that the shaft goes through to where the impeller is, and there's a seal right at the very closest to the wall in the main housing of the pump that's probably failed. This is really important to replace the seal, because if water gets in there, then it gets to the bearings that is in the main housing of the pump, and then they'll eventually corrode and fail. There's a small little opening in the main housing. There's a little tiny hole, and that's where the drip is coming from. It's just coming right out of there. And that's, I noticed where the drip was coming from exactly. So they said that's, you know, a very good indication it's that seal. So I purchased that little seal, and I've never done this before, taken a seawater pump apart completely. I do love these opportunities to do this stuff because it, for one thing, I learn more about my engine. It gives me more confidence in being able to problem solve things down the road, and just experience. If I have this issue again, I'll know what to do. Fingers crossed if it all works. So I'm going to put the parts this way so that I know the order of everything. At least this way I'll be able to keep track of everything. So now that I have the impeller out, you can see that in the housing here, right on the other side of that back section there, I guess that's where this gasket is. So as much as I enjoy making videos, I enjoy watching videos, and I just took a break to see if I could find a video on YouTube on how to take a water pump apart. I couldn't find a video specifically for this pump, but I found one for another type of water pump for a diesel engine for a boat, and it looked like it would be a similar process. The trick now is to get this shaft out and this bearing out. So what I saw them do on the video was put it into a press, and they pressed it out from this side, and they had a little jig and a bunch of things set up to make it press out easily. But I don't have a press or a vise, and what I do have is a rubber mallet. It's not a very big one, and I've already checked it. It'll fit in here. I'm just going to tap it a few times and see if that will take it out. I probably wouldn't recommend this as the preferred way to do it, but you know, in a pinch, this might work. And I'm just going to see if it will. If I'm not going to use excessive force or, you know, hit it too hard, but I'm just going to tap it a bit and see if it will start to push this bearing out, and give that a try. So I already felt it move. So let's see. You can see the bearing's actually already being pushed out. So that was quite easy. So just a few more taps probably. And yeah, it's starting to come out. So not that difficult actually. I could probably put something on here like the end of this bolt to just get it focused on there, and oh yeah, that actually works really well. You can see that bearing's almost out now. Oh, there you go. Just fell out. So that wasn't too difficult at all. So now on to the next step is just to get this seal out. That's this one that I need to replace, and it's way in there. I'm not sure if you can see it in the camera there, but I think that'll just be a matter of pushing it out somehow. The water is in behind here, working with the impeller, and that's the first seal that the water would go through. So let's see what we need to do to get that seal out. It's kind of overlapped there, so maybe I can just push it out. I'm not sure, but I think I'll be able to. Or maybe I'll have to tap it out as well. So I could find something that actually goes over it a bit. Maybe a couple taps. Yep. And that looks like everything's out. So I'll clean this up a little bit and then start putting it back together. So now it's time to put the shaft and the bearings back in. The new seal looks like it's in place evenly. You can see it right there at the bottom. There's from that side. I'm just going to place this in the center. Just give it a push. There. And now I just start putting things back the way I took them off. So this little clip here will go in. There's a little tiny piece of metal here. That's the tab that you have to set into the shaft part. And then on the impeller, you have to line up that little slot with that. Now, I did put a little grease on this last time, to just get it started, but then I've also heard you don't need to, because the water will lubricate it right away. So I don't know if that's really necessary to put the grease on. I'm going to try without it this time, because what I noticed when I pulled this off was it had a lot of residue on here that was from the bit of grease I put on. That's the same way as the pitcher. Okay, it's all sealed back up. I'll put this back on, start the engine, and see if there's a leak. Okay, as you can tell, the engine is off now, and still no drip. So, I think the problem is solved. Well, I think that's a success. There's no more drip when the engine's running, and no more drip when the engine's off. There's two reasons, I guess, that I try to do these things myself. One is mechanics are very expensive, and two is I'm learning more about my engine and how to fix these problems on my own, because I'm not always going to have access to a mechanic. Well, that's about it for now, and I hope to not have such a big delay before the next video. I do have some things on the go, so we will see you soon on the next video.